I don't know which one of y'all needs to hear this, but oil companies are fascist. Okay, if you've been following me for any length of time, that's not shocking news to you. I, for one, have been talking about their shenanigans for a hot minute, specifically about the American Legislative Exchange Council, but their influence is big. But The Guardian just put out this report, so let's look at it. How the fossil fuel industry helps spread anti-protest laws across the U.S. Records obtained show lobbyists working for major North American oil and gas companies were key architects of anti-protest laws that increase penalties and could lead to nonviolent environmental and climate activists being imprisoned up to 10 years. It cuts off at the top, but it says lawmakers in Utah, West Virginia, Idaho, and Ohio suggest a nationwide strategy to deter people frustrated by government failure to tackle the climate crisis from peacefully disrupting the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure by enacting tough laws with lengthy jail sentences. Quote, draft bill attached, wrote one lobbyist representing two influential fossil fuel trade groups to the lead counsel for the West Virginia State Energy Committee in January of 2020. The law, which carries a maximum 10-year prison sentence, was later used to charge at least 8 peaceful climate protesters, including 6 senior citizens. Everyone remember the Stop Line 3 protests? I do. So last year was the hottest year on record, and the Biden administration handed out more than 1,400 new oil and gas leases. That is half of the total globally. And the right to peaceful protest is under attack in the U.S., as well as the UK, Germany, Canada, and Australia. Countries that are also some of the most responsible for greenhouse gas emissions. Quote, existing legislation is being misused or new legislation is being brought in to criminalize peaceful acts, calling for real action to combat climate change. I agree, this is unacceptable. A lot of these anti-protest laws, punishing civil disobedience with felonies, fines and long jail sentences, has been passed by states across the U.S., a response, at least in part, to the 2016 Indigenous-led nonviolent uprising against the Dakota Access Pipeline at Standing Rock. Yeah. Oklahoma, the 6th largest oil and gas producing state in the U.S., was the first to pass laws designed to hold individuals and conspiring organizations criminally and civilly liable for tampering with or trespassing on so-called critical infrastructure, such as pipelines. Yeah, we've talked about this. This inspired the nationwide push from the American Legislative Exchange Council, otherwise known as ALEC, a right-wing fossil fuel-funded group that brings together corporations and lawmakers behind closed doors to draft model legislation on environmental standards, reproductive rights, voting, and among other issues. This is what I mean by, you name the issue, fossil fuel interests are probably behind it, making everything worse. Oil executives are the bad guys, not just for climate, but for most things. Apparently 45 states have considered new anti-protest legislation since 2017, with 22 critical infrastructure bills enacted in states including Wisconsin, North Dakota, Missouri, Arkansas, Florida, and Louisiana. In Louisiana, unauthorized entry around pipelines and other oil and gas facilities is punishable by imprisonment with or without hard labor for up to 5 years. So far, the critical infrastructure laws have led to scores of criminal and civil charges against climate and environmental activists in several states. This includes 3 activists and a journalist in Louisiana protesting against the Dakota Access Pipeline. 31 activists charged in Texas after rappelling off a bridge to hang banners protesting against oil and gas, and 8 protesters in West Virginia criminally charged for peacefully disrupting construction of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, the fossil fuel project forced through by Democratic lawmaker Joe Manchin. Haha, we've talked a lot about him. So, one of the things that make the critical infrastructure laws so harmful is that they're essentially taking something that would be a trespassing charge and turning it into a felony. It's essentially a way that fossil fuel industry is lobbying to make it harder and harder to have free speech or engage in these kinds of demonstrations. Emails obtained through dozens of Freedom of Information requests by The Guardian found that groups that first initiated the legislation in 2017, including ALEC, Marathon Petroleum, and American Fuel, and petrochemical manufacturers, have continued pushing anti-protest laws in different states. They also found that energy companies Dominion and Rocky Mountain Power pushed for anti-protest laws across different states. The records provide a picture of how lawmakers have been captured and how ALEC, a pay-to-play organization, works. And it is scary because this is a direct assault on our First Amendment rights. To find novel ways to try and criminalize protest is just really disgusting and disturbing and shows that we're really moving towards fascism. Yeah. Anyways, you heard me.